I do not care what's currently working for you to get leads. I don't care what's currently working for me to get leads. I'm always putting what's working yesterday through massive friction of is that behavior best today. I built my dad's liquor store from a $3 to a $60 million business in 5 years on the back of spending every penny properly, even though the data showed me that direct mail and newspapers and radios would work better than email and Google search. It didn't matter what it was showing me. What mattered was what were human beings doing right now. To be a person in this room looking for leads and growing their business and to not think social media works is audacious at best and downright fucking stupid at worst. Now I understand why people think that, because like anything in life, the ROI of something is completely predicated on how good you are at it. The ROI of a basketball is $1 billion for LeBron. It's 0 for me. Just because you ran $1,000 worth of Facebook ads and it didn't work, doesn't mean that Facebook doesn't work. It means that you suck.
Hello, everybody. This is part 2 of my meeting with GaryVee. If you have not listened to part 1 and you are confused as to why I'm meeting with Gary Vaynerchuk and his VaynerMedia team, I would hit stop now and go back and listen to part 1. If not, we pick up where we left off, where we are getting direction on all the different social media platforms, how they are different, how we have to create content that is unique for them, and then we dive into our actual meeting with GaryVee and what it's like when that guy comes rolling into the office.
You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Matthews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
You can't say God on the air.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Cool. So GaryVee's got a series of books. One of his books is called Jab, 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 Punch, which I've read. And what he talks about, a lot of that is, it's probably 5 years old at this point, so it's not going to be up to what Ian just said. TikTok, I don't think existed yet. But the point is understanding where you are, understanding the message, cultivating the message for people who are there, and making sure that you are built in a way that the audience is going to be able to find you. Because the message, what I just heard you say, and I know this going in because I advertise online too, understanding the medium is critical, because if you put the wrong message in the wrong medium, you're never going to get heard.
Yeah, I think that's right. So going through that, we learned a lot about the different channels and how you have to be nuanced. A big mistake a lot of people make is they'll make one ad or they'll make one post and then they'll just have someone put it on all of them.
Right.
And that doesn't work at all. Like, you have to tailor the message the way people are expecting it to look on those different sites, or you'll fail on different sites. So trying to just do what you're doing on TikTok, on LinkedIn won't work. LinkedIn does better with writing, with copy, with those kind of things. Whereas in TikTok needs to be a little more irreverent, less produced. That's more of what people are looking for. I also, they dove into TikTok a little bit because TikTok is largely getting blown off. One thing I really loved that Gary talked about and everyone around him talked about is, as an advertising firm, they just look at arbitrage. So the way Gary explained it is, I look to see who's adding the most new users and adding the least amount of businesses advertising there. He's like, that's where you get the best price. That's where you get the lowest cost for advertising. And he said, right now, TikTok is the most downloaded app in the world. It's the most trafficked in the world. It's bigger than Facebook now, bigger than Instagram. It's where all the attention is. And yet all the businesses that I work with roll their eyes and say, that's just a bunch of 8-year-old kids doing dances. And he's like, and that tells me that they've not spent any time on it, because that's not what it is anymore. That's what it started as. It is very different. Just like LinkedIn started as just a place where you put your resume and that was it. LinkedIn's very different than that now. There's videos on it, there's feeds, there's images. So I learned a lot about, I would say probably the one I learned the most about is TikTok in general. I didn't know much about TikTok, and he challenged David and I, Gary, when we talked to us, he challenged us because he asked us how much time we spent there. And we both kind of, even though they had already done some modules on TikTok, we were like, we're not there at all. Why? We were like, well, kind of the same reasons you said, most are not there. We think it's just a bunch of people like my daughter, who's an 8-year-old who lives on TikTok, dancing. And he said, so his challenge to us, the only homework he gave us the whole time was, I want the two of you to go set up an account and spend 15 minutes a day there. Because we were asking him about influencer campaigns. And we can get into that, Frankie, I guess, at some point. But he believes influencer campaigns could be huge for us. Rather than one big bang, get yourself a whole bunch of micro influencers. And my question to him is, how do we know who to choose? And he said,
so let's get to that in a minute. I want to spend a little bit more time on this. Look at what I typed in chat, by the way. I want to spend a little bit more time on this for this reason. So I am part of a mastermind network. I talk about it all the time, and people always are talking about social media. So let's talk about some of the tips and tricks you talk about with each one of the big 5. And then let's move into the next piece, which is specifically for Keep. So on TikTok, Ian, why did he challenge you to spend 15 minutes a day on it? And then what was the guidance? Like, how do you build a following on TikTok?
So part of this is he's asking everyone, where are you active? What are you doing? So I'm active on LinkedIn, and I've had success on LinkedIn. So the fact that I've had success on LinkedIn, I go spend more time there because I've been successful. But Gary's team is making the argument that you're successful there because you spend a lot of time there and you know what works. You know other creators that are doing well. You know what people like to see on LinkedIn. You know what the people that spend time there, what they want, and you give it to them in the way they like to consume it.
So let's attack LinkedIn since we're talking about, we'll get to TikTok next. So this happens fucking daily. So Ian and I are putting things out on LinkedIn. Now, these are little hacks that we've learned. I'm guessing we're going to uncover some of these and talk about it with Gary, but this is how you get attention on LinkedIn. So this is really important, and Ian's better than it to me, that I'm going to start it. I'm going to let him kind of curate what I say. So they want native content on LinkedIn. They don't want to have a video that takes you to a different website. So you need to put something that gets people engaged on LinkedIn and doesn't take them somewhere else. In addition to that, what LinkedIn looks at is your engagement within the first hour. So what happens in a lot of instances when Ian and I put out a video, we keyword it, we don't take anybody anywhere, we leave them on LinkedIn, and we try and get at least 20 likes and comments within the first hour. Because once you do that, what LinkedIn starts to notice, now we're not super influencers like a GaryVee, he's going to get way more than that. But what ends up happening is if we are able to get 20 plus reactions in the first hour, our videos tend to get more than 1,000 views. So what ends up happening is we are native to the site, we capture it, we get momentum, and then we get a lot of views. The biggest views that Ian and I have ever had are into the 5,000 to 10,000 range, and they've all caught fire early. So Ian, what other hacks do you know about LinkedIn? I think this is really cool to talk about.
So I think with all the different social media, it's similar. I am very consistent. I post something every morning. And so getting your audience, whoever follows you, getting your audience conditioned that you are going to post something at a certain time. If that's once a week, that's Mondays. This podcast is like that. This podcast comes out on Monday morning. So people are used to getting our podcast on Monday mornings, usually.
Podetize. You hear that? Same time every week.
Yeah, our marketing firm, not always the best at that. But be consistent of when you post. So for me with LinkedIn, it's every morning. Frank's right. Every social media platform is not a fan of sending you to another one. So if I post a link on LinkedIn, I could write the same copy, but if I then attach a link to YouTube, that's sending someone off LinkedIn, and they don't like that. So they'll share it with a lot less people. There are algorithm hacks that you can do. Yes, they want viral content. They want things people are talking about, engaging with. So the more people that can talk about it in the first hour, the better. A little hack that I do, After in the first hour, I respond to everyone's comments. Anyone that sends me a comment, I respond to it. I write it back to them. After an hour, I log off of LinkedIn. I click out of all of them, and LinkedIn doesn't like that. LinkedIn wants me to come back. So LinkedIn will start sending me emails if I click out of it saying, this person commented, people are engaging, Ian, come back. Your article's doing well. And so if you leave, what I found out is if you leave the platform after an hour, it will send it to more people to get more people commenting and then remind you to come back and comment with them because it wants me on it all day. So post, comment as much as you can, be consistent when you do it. LinkedIn is about copy and not about sending to other links. And if you're going to post something that's native there that will live on LinkedIn forever. So our videos, we upload an actual video that just can be found on LinkedIn or a picture just on LinkedIn. And anytime we are sending someone to a link, we put it in the comments because the comments won't hurt you as much as sending someone off as if you put it in the body of the post.
A couple other things with YouTube that we've learned. You can get away with a little bit more in the regards to movie clips, sound bites, things along those lines. Facebook is like the Gestapo with that. But so you can get away with some of this stuff, but you'll start to really learn with posting regularly what is and what is not allowable. All right, let's move off of LinkedIn. Is there anything else to add to LinkedIn before we get to a different platform?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Facebook. So I want to talk about Facebook from this perspective. Facebook is a browse. It is not a search. Almost always. There is some search component of Facebook, but usually it's browse. So there's a guy who's in my network who is incredible. He's got perfect hair. He's like becoming one of the faces of real estate. He's been on Bigger Pockets. YouTube has reached out to him. TikTok, he's got a 2 million plus following on TikTok. And he said something in a meeting that I thought was incredible. He goes, nobody's ever gotten Facebook famous. So Facebook is a place for grandmas to go or for you to be kind of one away with ads. That's how things work on Facebook. And it's a little bit similar on Instagram since they're both owned by Facebook. So why don't you talk a little bit about Facebook and then Instagram on what either you learned going in or what they confirmed or helped you with when you were there?
So Instagram and Facebook, even though they're owned by Facebook, one thing that they have that they know really well that they're better than any social media. So if you're using paid advertising, they have an algorithm that is crazy good. They know more about you. They know more about what you like, what your friends like, what your spending habits are. So if you are an advertiser on those platforms, the algorithm will find your buyer. It usually takes 45 to 60 days. So one thing that Gary was talking about is too many people quit on Facebook right away. And he would argue with you that it's just a place for grandmas. He actually had some data that said that's total bullshit. That's just people that have it wrong. Grandmas spend more time scrolling on it and just screwing around because they're not on some of the other places. But young people are still all over Facebook. They're just using it different. So, no one uses Craigslist anymore. It's become obsolete. Facebook Marketplace has taken its place. So Facebook is a place where young people go to buy things, almost like in Amazon. So they're used to getting advertisements there. If you have products, consumer products, similar to what David and I have, it's a good place to advertise if you're selling. So that Facebook Marketplace is a big place where the return is still really good on investing dollars. Now, Instagram is a little bit different. Even though it's owned by Facebook, it's still all Zuckerberg. Instagram is really trying to drive their stories. So if you look at your Instagram, if you get it on an iPhone, there's your feed that you can scroll through your timeline. But if you go to the top, there's a whole bunch of little circles and those are stories. And what Instagram is trying to do is capture the way TikTok works. They want more video. Video keeps you there. So Instagram used to just be a picture sharing site. That's how it started. No one's saying that anymore. They want to be a video site. So videos perform better. And people that use the stories section are getting a lot more engagement and get seen by a lot more people if you go. So if you're trying to decide as an advertiser or company, how do I do this? Do I post a picture? Do I post a story? The stories are doing much better and they work. They're like a mix between TikTok and Snapchat in that the stories go away. They last for 24 hours, then the story's gone. So that's a little bit different. One thing that I really liked that Instagram has are the Instagram polls. So GaryVee talked to us a lot about how to listen to customers on social media, how to use it to see what's important to people. They're using Instagram polls more and more to get data about their customers, to learn about different things. He challenged us a little bit. He was asking us about our price. Our price is $299. And, Gary was like, I don't know if it's $50 people will pay or $300. I don't know. He challenged us to go be smarter about how we're getting customer data. And he was talking about the different polls that you can use and the different A/B tests. So I'll get into more about how you can do that, but that was one thing that I took away from it. And he also talked about how so many owners of companies have like an Instagram page and then they have their individual page. But the truth is people want to follow the individual more than the company page. The company pages normally don't do well on these because who wants to run? Like the founders, Elon Musk is way more exciting than Tesla to most people. Like he has such a big following because his life is fascinating. So they got into a little bit of the personal branding there. But that on Instagram, it's about videos. And if you're not using stories, you have to change that mentality because they are pushing everything to stories and less about images and regular feed.
So I want to read you something that's really cool. This came up from somebody who has studied these things, and I had to dig it up while you were talking. But you talked about how the ads are so incredibly great with Instagram and also Facebook. And this is why. So on both, especially Facebook, they use what's called a like. So if you go out and you're a heavy liker of things, listen to this. If you do 10 likes on Facebook, Facebook knows you better than one of your coworkers. So if you've gone out and just randomly liked 10 things on Facebook, they know you better than a coworker. 70 likes, Facebook knows you better than a friend. So 70 knows me, it can anticipate my buying and my tendencies more than Ian if I liked at least 70 things. Ian and I are both old. I don't think I've liked 70 things on Facebook, but to that end, like most young kids can be incredibly well targeted because they like that. If there's 150 likes, Facebook knows you better than your parents. 300 likes, they know you better than your spouse. So it shows you like the ability and how smart they are at taking these things and cross-referencing. For people who are heavy Facebook users, if you do enough likes, Facebook knows you better than yourself. So an example of this, I tend to buy clothes on Facebook, tons of clothes. Like I tend to buy shoes or clothes are the things that I tend to buy. My brother-in-law came over and he's not a shoe or clothes guy. He buys guns and things that are in the woods. Like he's an outdoorsman. He's got four-wheelers. He lives on some acreage. He loves it. And I asked him, like, where do you always find this stuff? He goes, oh, it just finds me on Facebook or Instagram. Ian tends to wear really cool t-shirts, like 80s t-shirts. I asked him where he found them. I've never seen the ad. It's on Instagram. So what these things are really, really great at is understanding who you are, what it is that you are. And what we tell people, Netflix is famous for this. Netflix says people tell us they want to watch documentaries. You're full of shit. We see the data. You tell people you want to watch documentaries, you don't. So, because they know who watches it. So it's incredible with just that little bit of information, how great they can be in marketing. And then
it's not just what you like, Frank, it's what your friends like. So
correct.
If you are liking your specific people, like you could have 500 friends on Facebook, but it knows your friends. It knows the 7 or 8 you're really scrolling and watching the most of that are paying attention. It's going to use their buying habits to give you ads because if your best friends might like it, if I like some nice t-shirts, Frank might start seeing some nice t-shirts that I'm getting the same ads for. Just like if a good friend of mine in Virginia bought an aluminum baseball bat for his kid, I might get that same ad because they know both of us like the same. It's so crazy how much the web works. And so I want to come back to this though. So the Facebook and Instagram thing, this thought of like, don't be on Facebook because just grandmas is so untrue. Young folks are all over Facebook Marketplace. They like that. They go there because Facebook shows them new things and they like to find new things. And Facebook's good at introducing new advertisements to you based on your buying history. That's where they find new stuff.
It's absolutely fascinating. I think you said something that I think is also incredibly critical, and it's the migration to video. Do we want to talk about this now, or do we want to hit that when we get to YouTube or TikTok?
So I think you can't talk about it. I might as well just talk about TikTok, because TikTok is who's pushed them all into this world. So TikTok, they're right now, they are the center of the social media universe. So whether you think it's stupid or whether you think the videos are ridiculous or just for little kids, you could think what you want, but the data would say you're wrong. They are, there's two things they talk about at Vayner. There's free reach and there's viral reach. Free reach is, and reach just means how many people saw what you posted or looked at. That's from your network. That's from you creating something really good. And then viral reach, they consider something gifted to you by the platform. So Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn are so mature that the viral reach is not great right now because they've been around for a long time. So you have to earn all of the engagements. You have to put something great up. It has to be interesting. It has to really connect. TikTok is still trying to bring lots of new people into the fold. And so they're in a place where they're giving people viral reach. So people outside of that means people outside of your network and your network's network, because there's so many new people coming on. If you're a producer, they're adding people faster than they have content getting added, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they don't have a lot of advertisers on there. So Vayner said there's nowhere else to go right now where you get as much free viral reach that's gifted to you by the platform to bring on new people. So your friend who's got 2 million TikTok followers probably grew that a lot faster than he could have grown 2 million Facebook followers, because TikTok is giving away viral reach right now because they're trying to get everyone. They want to be Facebook, and they've pretty much become Facebook. They're more popular right now with the young folks, which means those are the people in 5 years they're gonna be buying my car alarm because they're gonna have a car.
That's it. I think the free reach versus the viral reach, those are terms I'd never heard of before. And that's a big deal. And I'll restate it in case you missed it. The free reach is basically something you've created. The viral reach is the reach where the platform helps you with this. Like when I used to work.
Gift. Yeah, they look at it as a gift. Like, right. Here you go. I'm going to put this in front of another 1,000 people that aren't even in your network because it's new and we're trying to get you going.
When I worked at Ryan Homes, I would sell 2 houses a month for 2 reasons: the advertising that they did in the Washington Post, and because of the model home with all the signage. People just show up. That is free. That is viral reach because I work there and it just kind of reached out to them. That makes a ton of sense. I think the thing you said a second ago too, the inverse relationship between advertisers and users and understanding this. Now, I'm 46. So like I started getting clued into social media probably like 2006, 2009. So I met GaryVee for the first time at a conference in 2009. Tony Robbins put on this huge conference, $5,000, and he had all these incredible names. He had GaryVee there. He had, I could go through the list. It was insane, the amount of talent. It was 3 days. It was like super cheap for what you got. And GaryVee was just a wine guy back then. He was doing Wine Library TV, and he was on YouTube, and he was on Twitter, and he was talking about it. And the brand of the week tends to change. So Twitter was really hot. Facebook was hot. TikTok is currently hot. But what you understand is if you can get on this platform early and be an early dominator to the platform, what tends to happen is you get a lot of momentum. And then you have to move, these things tend to go away. But I've seen it now 6, 7, 8 different times. TikTok is the hot commodity at the moment because it's the newest. Instagram was the hot commodity at the moment a while ago. When Facebook bought them for $1 billion, GaryVee came out and said they stole Instagram. And everyone's like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. Like, WhatsApp traded for multiples of that, and it was not nearly the footprint a couple of years later. So like these things are always evolving and changing, but knowing where you are in the cycle and how it works and what you can get out of it are big. All right, so we didn't talk YouTube. I think we should. What do you want to say about YouTube? What did you learn? What did they tell you guys?
Look, there's two other things though that I'll say when I stay on TikTok that I learned about that I'm not being an active user. Someone who's on TikTok would know about these, but hashtag challenges. You ever heard of these, Frank?
Yes.
So they have these hashtag challenges and more big brands are starting to use them. So a hashtag challenge as an advertiser, you have to pay for this. So you create it, you create a hashtag challenge, and it's basically a way of getting people to use your product. So an example they used for a campaign they ran with Olay. Olay's got a bunch of stay-at-home products. So their hashtag challenge was stay-at-home spa. The stay-at-home spa challenge, and they did this right in COVID. So they saw more and more people were on TikTok that were creating these stay-at-home spas because there were no open spas at the time. And so they built a bundle of products, like a $200 bundle of products, right? Like eye creams, masks, whatever someone would need for a stay-at-home spa. And then they created this challenge where, the winners of this challenge would get a free bundle if they got a viral enough video of them creating a little spa in their house. And these got thousands and thousands of views. And it was, people spent a fortune on these stay-at-home spas for Olay. So it was something that really the two of us started thinking hard about, doing a little hashtag challenge of, protecting your car or something around security, safety, something of that nature.
I would like to be
a really fascinating deal.
I would like to be the first participant this year when I buy my meat and fish for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Hopefully I don't get it ripped off.
Maybe you get another roast ripped off, some kid running around on a bike. That'd be a pretty funny video. Shit would go viral. Some kid rolling around back to his neighborhood with a roast on his back. So that was really good. And they also talked a lot about the trending hashtags on TikTok because it is such is the most trafficked social media site right now. The hashtags there, what's trending, and looking at that helps you kind of tap into something that's important and making your product fit within something that everyone is seeing right now. So I'll give you an example of something that worked for me on LinkedIn. I just did a little gag post, and you didn't really know much about it, but there's this thing that started on TikTok where people are walking on these egg crates like pyramids and falling, busting their heads open. Most of them are in the hood, and I saw a lot of it from Snoop Dogg. But I posted a picture of a bunch of crates going up and down, and then I made it like into a little business post on LinkedIn, and it did wildly, like it did like over 10,000 views, and people were commenting all over it. But it's little ways like that you can hack into kind of the social consciousness of what's hot right now that they talked about and how to use TikTok for your brand.
So we were real quick. So we were talking about this guy that I'm friends with from CG. His name is Ryan Pineda, Pineda. If you look him up, he has on Facebook 4,700 followers, about 4,700 friends. So he's got about, if there's no duplicates, 9,000, roughly 5,000 to 10,000 people he's touching.
What's going on, everybody? Ryan Pineda.
That's here. Him on YouTube. His YouTube following, I'm trying to find, he's got 150,000 subscribers on YouTube. On TikTok, he has 885,000 followers and 12.2 million likes. So
that's viral reach right there. That's what that is. Same content, same guy. I imagine he's posting as much on all those sites as he is, but TikTok is giving him a ton more eyeballs, spending time getting to know his brand.
Exactly. And I wanted to bring that up for that exact reason. Like, I think we're really diving into something kind of cool because most people don't know this stuff. I've been brushed against it. Ian saying it is really kind of crystallizing it for me. But that's a perfect example. Like, this dude knows what he's doing. He has a course on how to get, literally allow the internet to help you, social media to help you, and you can see the reach. So I thought that was important. All right. You were about to pivot to something else.
Think about that just from us. Just if we want this podcast to be bigger, we're on LinkedIn, and we should be on LinkedIn because we're a business podcast. But young people are interested in business as well. They're interested in careers. There's people that are doing it on TikTok. You and I could be getting a hell of a lot more reach on TikTok. If the goal is to get listeners, we are ignoring TikTok at the peril of this podcast. Not so the peril because it's not like it's going to die, but if we want to get more reach, we should have a TikTok strategy. That I left there thinking, I got to quit being a dick saying that those are a waste of time. It's a bunch of 8-year-olds. And I also got to quit thinking that Facebook is just old people. Like I learned a lot of like, those are all just terrible thoughts that are wrong. TikTok is a place where we could be performing better.
There's self-conceived prejudices that we put on it, and they're wrong because we don't understand how to use it. So we'll just make something up and sit on the couch and watch the Dodgers game. So one of the things that I have in the notes is Jerome is going to be here Tuesday. So I'm going to ask him, how do we build TikTok videos? Like what works, what doesn't? Ian and I have support staff. We've each got people who we talk to and work with, and we're being lazy. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to do that and capitalize on it. And for me, I know it's TikTok.
Let me cut you off for 1 second. So I kind of went this route, and this is where GaryVee cut me off. Said, no. Don't hire us. Don't hire an agency. Don't spend money. Get your ass on TikTok for 15 minutes. And he pointed at both me and David. It's like, I get it. You guys are successful businessmen. You run a company, blah, blah, blah. Go spend 15 minutes a day on TikTok. You can't outsource this if you don't know what's going on and how it works. So he said, don't do anything until he's like, I would be so happy if you guys sent me an email in 3 months and said, I was on TikTok 15 minutes a day, and here's how I've started. He also said, that's how you find influencers. He's like, don't let me pick your influencers. Why don't you spend time and say, that guy's kind of one of us. I like him. I'm going to DM him and say, we want to work with you, buddy. Like, that's how you find an influencer, someone you're okay with.
So I need to clarify. I'm not going to ask Jerome how to use TikTok. I'm going to ask Jerome how to use my phone and show me how to post it to TikTok. I'll go build my own content.
Yeah, but this isn't something I think we can. He over and over, he says, a big mistake people make is they lose their voice and they try to just spend a bunch of money in social media, and it doesn't work. You've got to be engaged, or it just comes across as flat. This is as topical as our event on gaslighting that we talked about, really just cutting edge from the 1940s. So the Wright brothers were not well funded, and they're the ones who ultimately, if you haven't gotten the newspaper in the last century and a half, invented flight. But there was all these government agencies that had tons and tons of money. These guys had no money. They made bicycles, and they had passion, and they won. So Ian's right. And sometimes everyone, especially people of our age and means, need to be reminded, I'm not going to get roll up your freaking sleeves and do it yourself. So let's talk a little bit about YouTube. What does the most popular search start with? What 2 words?
How to.
You nailed it. How to. The most popular search on YouTube is always going to be how to. So if you're building something on YouTube, it should be answering that question. So they talked a lot about different content strategies, but if you're building content, that I loved one of the thoughts that came out of this. I don't know if Gary said it or the head of Sasha Group, but the best way that they build content is they tell people, go into your inbox and read the customer questions. Just go get into your question. What are the last 100 questions you've answered for a customer? Go build videos on it. Go build videos around how to do it, comparisons. Are people asking about price? Are they asking about how it works, how it's installed, how to fix it? How do I use it in a different application? And if you don't have that in your inbox, if you do have one social channel that's doing well, what are the questions people are asking in the comments? Okay, that's your content. So one thing GaryVee said that I really liked, he said that he doesn't think about business where the customer's always right. He said, but the customer's customer is always right. So I'm going to say that again. My customer isn't always right, but my customer's customer is. What he means there is his job is marketing. His job is to help you spend your money to get as many sales as you can. But he said most companies are really good at building widgets or good at building houses like Frank, or you and I are good at talking about certain business things, but we're not great marketers. He's a great marketer. So a lot of times his customer will come and be like, here's how I want to market. I want to go run a TV ad campaign. We're going to go, put a couple ads in the New York Times. And he's like, usually my customer's wrong when it comes to marketing. I'm listening to my customer's customer. What do they want? What do they want more from you? What are they listening to? So I thought that was a really, out of all of my takeaways of stuff GaryVee said, that was one of the things that I really liked the most, was thinking about the actual consumer of a product more than the executives running the company from a marketing standpoint. I really liked that. And so he also talked a little bit about YouTube page, how most people just don't set it up right. And people will leave there really quick. A YouTube page should look like a table of contents. So if you go to Gary Vaynerchuk's YouTube page, it's great like this. It's broken down by content. What are you here for? What do you want to look at? Do you want to look at advertising? Do you want to talk about inspiration? Do you want to talk about mindset? He's got it broken down into lots of different categories. So when you come there, you can choose what you want to talk about. This is the opposite of how Frank and I have our YouTube page. We just have 60 episodes listed. None of it's broken out by table. So one thing Frank and I are doing, we're talking to a friend of his that is better than us at this, and we're going to go set up our YouTube page a lot different than it's set up today. But it crystallized it for me, Frank, listening to Gary talk about it, that most people, before you think about your content, you need to organize your site, that people don't get there and say, God, I want to leave. It needs to be organized, and they need to have choices of, I'm here. What do you have to offer? Scroll down. Oh, I like this. I'm going to stay in this category. Break it down by categories.
So there's a couple things, because while you're doing this, I actually typed into YouTube and it took me 3 tries to find it. So our YouTube channel has 44 subscribers with 54 videos. Let me say that again. We have more videos than we have subscribers. The only 2 that come up natively are our most recent 2 podcasts come up natively, and then someone else gets in front of us in line, which is terrible. The other thing is, I want to go through this real quick. Podcast number 9, changing your life through small habits, but renaming that, how to change your life through small habits, how to build a presentation that doesn't suck. All this is, we have good stuff and people aren't finding it. So the goal of this podcast was to talk a little bit about what he learned, but I got excited halfway through this because lesson, maybe quarter way into it, because I'm like, Ian was just with one of the foremost experts on this information, and I want to learn while I'm here. This is some of my time too. So that's why we kind of got into the sidetrack of what we're talking about, because I think this is valuable. It's valuable for me, and if it's valuable for me, I'm guessing it's valuable for you if you're listening.
Yeah, in essence, Frank, we spent $10,000 a ticket. 2,000 was knocked off because now COVID has hurt their demand a little, so we are getting a little rebate from our initial 12. But we spent $20,000, and we talked about it. We were at ground zero of that's the mecca of social media marketing. No one does it better than GaryVee. He's got bigger followers. He makes a ton of money on there. He's really good at it across all channels, huge agency. So I took a lot of things away from it, but let's just start with the YouTube page. The fact that you didn't even know how to find it. So let's talk about that a little bit. Frank and I have completely outsourced our YouTube page. We outsourced it to Podetize, which is our podcast marketing firm. We're not involved in it. We're not involved in the images they choose to put on the thumbnails. We're not involved in how it's named to be smart. We're not involved. We've spent nothing on marketing. They just kind of get posted. I wouldn't know how to find it either. I've not been to our page. I think I've been to our page once. We're not funneling anywhere in there. We're not talking. So this comes down to, again, you can't outsource 100% social media. So if we want our YouTube page to be better, Frank and I need to spend some time on our YouTube page. We need to look at it. We need to pay attention. We got to listen to it. You can't, to me, the lessons across all of it is where am I doing good in social media? It's LinkedIn. That's where I spend my time. Where did I do good before that? Quora. That's where I was spending my time. And where I don't spend my time, I do shitty because I don't know anything about it. I don't even know how it looks to other people, let alone me. So if we want to be better on YouTube, and I think we do, I think from everything I learned, that's where people are searching. That's how they'll get to our podcast. We need to do a lot of things different from what they were talking to us about. And I took that away too, that just the titles and the organization and the way the content is laid out, all of that really matters.
So this is a podcast about business. Let me speak to a manager as a play on words, because Ian and I are managers. We are actively managers. Now, we are not infallible humans, clearly, even though by listening to us, you probably think we are, but we think we are. But the point of this is this. We both know that you need to master something first. We've talked about it here before you can outsource it to others. So my takeaways from Ian's trip, besides I wish I was at the Dodgers game and I had a Dodger dog.
You'd had fun, bro. You'd had some fun and margaritas.
Oh, I love it. But the point is we need to get a little bit granular. Like at the end of every one of these, we say, hey, we joke about the dozens of listeners. The reasons we have dozens of listeners is either we suck, and I don't think we do, or we're not doing a good job. We suck at marketing, and we're not spending time on getting granular with it. And that's where the effort needs to go. Continue to put out a good product, talk about things that are relevant, get great detail, and then talk about how to get it out there. And I'm not even
sure it's that we suck at it. I think also
we're not subject matter experts.
We're 9 months into this. And I think we've been honest with everyone on these podcasts. We never started this as a business. We started it as kind of a fun little thing to do because neither of us understood podcasts. So let's do one. And we think we have good ideas. Let's see. We never thought of it as a business. We've just gotten good at creating content. And one thing that I took away from everyone at this, the hardest part is creating content. And the marketing is just about putting your attention there a little bit more. Yeah. And the people that were at the table, all of them were saying, God, when do I find time to create content? Or I can't come up with content. And I was sitting there thinking like that is not a problem for me, is coming up with content, creating content. When it comes to this podcast, with anything, if I want to create content, I can. That's just a matter of scheduling the time and doing it. And I'm gonna have to do that with Keep with the car alarm. But you and I are already doing a lot of that. And we'll get into GaryVee's specific segment in a minute, but just wrapping up the YouTube and all of the different social channels. Video is everything. People, every one of the channels wants video and not pictures. And other than LinkedIn, which likes people reading, but reading is similar. LinkedIn has a lot of copy they share. It's the same. It takes you a few minutes to read a long form. They want you on there as long as possible. That's how they can learn, like scroll. So video has to be there. The story mode is very big. How you organize it is big. The content you produce on each one needs to be what people expect on there. Because there are different expectations in each. And the only way to know that is to spend time on there. Those were all the kind of the big ones that I took away. And we really haven't even talked about Twitter, but Twitter didn't get a lot of attention on there. Gary's big take on Twitter is it's a great place to learn, to learn from feedback and to get into conversations. Don't worry about content, get into conversations and learn what you should post on other places.
All right, so we are getting long in the tooth on this podcast, and there's a couple things we can talk about. I think we should have two major subjects and then put a wrap on this. So the second to last one I want to talk about is GaryVee himself. You met him. How was that? I mean, you're taller than him, which is noteworthy in itself. But what were some of the major takeaways?
He does make me feel tall. So David and I were talking about it this morning. So he is so deliberate about his presence. So, we got a few meetings in the morning, and it's beautiful LA office, everything you would think from an office and advertising agency, big exposed roof, everything's open loft, very cool place, huge kitchen that we were kind of sitting around really, where the presentation was taking place. Gary comes in a little bit after lunch, and the guy comes into the office with two camera dudes following him in, like everywhere. He's a reality show that just goes 24/7. He's always got camera guys with him. He's got his camera guy is D-Rock. So D-Rock's with him. before he even meets with us, he's got like multiple people on a couch. He's shaking their hands. They're recording this. He's doing like little 10, 15-minute get-togethers. There was a famous rapper in the office that I don't know who this rapper was. He's a young hip hop guy that I'd never met. So Gary spent some time with this hip hop guy on camera, talking to him, coaching him on some things that he could be doing with his social media presence. So he, this whole agency just revolves around Gary's personality and how much he cultivates everything. But David called it a circus. He's like, it's a circus. Like, it's unbelievable. He had multiple wardrobe changes, Gary did, the time we saw him. And I don't know why that, maybe it's similar to when you and I change shirts when we're doing 2 podcasts on one day. So it looks like it happened on a different day, but I saw him in multiple outfits while he was there. But so if you follow him at all on social media, he's a really positive guy, really gregarious. He's all of that. And, the people that work for him, they're all very similar in that they're high energy, good people. But he's everything you see on social media. He looks you in the eye when he talks to you. He big smile, very good listener. I was impressed. So he sits down at the table with us. He sits down at kind of the head of the table, and he's got an hour and a half to spend with all of us. And there's a guy who was a dentist, and he does, he's building a business on the side of video programs for other dentists to do veneers and other things. And then there's me and David, which are totally different. There was a mortgage broker who had a team of 12 people in a growing business. There was a guy who owns 4 restaurants in Vegas. This is interesting. Jim Brown's wife was there as one of the paying advertisements. She's building like Jim Brown's brand, getting all his old footage and creating a media company around it. And she was a very, very impressive individual.
Did Gary jump all over that? He must have been
yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Oh no. So I'm talking to her at lunch, and she's like, telling me about her. She wants to start a podcast, and she's telling me all about it. And I'm listening. I'm like, I got a podcast. And I was giving her a few ideas and some things that like get started, that it would be easier than she thought. And she's telling me what she's doing. And she's like, we're doing a documentary on African Americans in lacrosse. We're trying to get exposure out there to the sport because we love the sport. And she kept saying, we, and African Americans, I don't know if you know this, they're really underrepresented in lacrosse. And I'm like, well, the most famous lacrosse player ever is Jim Brown. It's probably the best one. She's like, that's my husband. Like, she was so humble. Like, she didn't even lead with that. I was talking to her. She was there half the day. I didn't know Jim Brown was her husband. She was just taking notes. She was great. But in general, you get it. Like, it's a very diverse group of different companies. And he was great. He went around to everyone at the table and said, what do you got? And he was great. He was like, look, this is not your time to be overly humble. You paid for your time with me. Ask me direct questions. Go through this. So this is funny. I don't know if David's going to listen to this, but he might kill me. But for us, we were playing a little bit of 3D chess. Gary also has a venture capital business. He's invested in a number of tech startups. So not only are we there to just ask like Facebook or Instagram, we also kind of wanted to get him a little bit interested in the company. And when we do our Series A, wouldn't be bad if we got Gary to invest in this, if we had that megaphone, similar to we went to get consulting from Shaq, but wouldn't hate it if Shaq wanted to be an equity partner. So more than all the other companies, David spent a little more time on his background and building the company. And then we pulled the device out. But David's probably, looking back on it, he was kicking himself. He probably spent too much time on the backstory. So do you remember in the Christmas story where Ralphie and his brother wait in line to see Santa for like 3 hours, and then Santa says, you'll shoot your eye out?
Yeah, but before he says he'll shoot your eye out, he asks him what he wants, and he goes blank, and he says, I want a football. Santa kicks him in the face, and he goes down the slide and crawls back up.
Okay, so David's part is literally that. So David's focusing on get Gary's attention, get his interest in our product. Maybe he'll invest in us. He's invested in early stage Twitter, early stage Uber, early stage Facebook, all the big ones he's invested in. So, part of us is thinking we'd love to work with Gary at some point and have him invest in our company. So David's spending a lot of time on that. And then he gets to a question, and Gary just kind of blurts out like what I would do, one thing you could do is hire an artist, have them, draw like 10 pictures of cars, and then do an NFT auction. And NFTs are non-fungible tokens, which is one of the few things I'm not totally on board with Gary of the future of. And I've been vocal with David that I not really into NFTs. That's all he says. And then like the moderator is like, okay, let's go to Russell, who's with mortgage. And I'm like, oh my God, the Ralphie thing just happened. That David spent his whole 10 minutes talking and then got one answer from him, which was pretty much, you'll shoot your eye out. And I was like, oh man, like, God damn it. Like this is the whole day was all of this. And I just saw on David's face, he's just like, oh, like so pissed that that happened. So it came around. And at the end of it, I grabbed the moderator. I'm like, I got a couple more questions because he was kind of in a hurry. He's like, no, okay, go ahead. And Gary was great. He could see I wanted to follow up. So it was great. David needed to set it up and show the device and kind of explain it a little bit and see what we were up to. But I just told Gary, I said, look, we're in a little different position than most people. We have raised money. We have a lot of capital. So we're not in a place where we're trying to bootstrap our marketing. If you were me and you had this product coming out, now you know what it is, in May or June of next year, and you had $1 million or $1.5 million to spend on marketing, what would you do to get as much attention as you possibly could? And this is where like his brain is great to watch. He was like, yeah, I got 4 or 5 things for you, blah, blah, blah. And he just started talking really fast. So I was taking a lot of notes, but that was where kind of the magic happened. He got into influencer campaign. He got into starting to build a Facebook group of our own that he's like, you can get into other people's Facebook groups and you can try to kind of mooch around and creep on them, or you can start your own to get some energy based around it. He was big on going after some micro influencers and testing as many as you can. Cause I asked him, do we go with small influencers? Do we go with one big one? And his idea was you want to spread your bets around when it comes to influencers. And that's where he got into, I want both of you to spend as much time as you can on TikTok until you find a few people that are like, yeah, that person's one of us. And then start to reach out to them. They're going to charge you. They're going to have an agent if they're big, but the smaller ones will be cheaper than the others. He's like, but I think that's a way that you could get some people to do some comparisons, some products. Let them be your creatives because they've built it was a good point. He's like, they've built a following because they're creative. That's what an influencer is. Their following is ride or die with them because they like their creativeness. Don't force your creativity onto their audience. Let them see it and figure out, how am I going to be creative? Because they know what their audience wants more. So when we finally got around to it, it was awesome. We got through it. He was talking to us about cartoons and animations, and we told him that we had a cartoon explainer video. And, he was like, look, here's my email address. I want you to send that to me. I want to take a look at it. I'm going to give you some thoughts. So I send him an email with our explainer video and our website that night. So it'll be interesting to see what he responds to on that, or if he gets it or responds to it. So it was fun when he finally got around to diving in on a couple of different things that we could be doing and some specifics when you broke down to it. But where I was most impressed was, without knowing any background on 5 very different businesses, he did the same thing for everyone. He was like, here's something you should think about. Here's something I would be doing if I were you. I would, like one guy, he said, you should be on Quora. You should be answering questions on Quora for other aspiring dentists who want to do veneers. You should be answering questions and then steering them with paid advertisements to the folks that are following those type of questions. Because you can really niche down in Quora, which he's right. I took a few notes on that. And then when he went to the mortgage guy, he had some very specific stuff he was doing there. And one other thing he did, Frank, that I think is good for us, he said a lot of times people just keep making more content. They just keep more and more and more content. And he's like, one guy you could tell he was overwhelmed because he's like, I'm running a business. I've already done so much content. I don't know when I'm going to find time to make more content. And he's like, well, how many of these have you done? And the guy, by the time we were done talking about it, probably probably had like 100 hours of content. And he's like, my God, you don't need to make another piece of content for 5 years. Refurbish, go back through, find a good editor that can be creative about it. Take something you said 3 years ago, put it on the left side of the screen, take your phone, flip it around and say, I talked about this in 2017. Let me tell you why it's still relevant today. I predicted this. He's like, there's so much. Don't create more if you're not sharing what you have. And I was taking a lot of notes specifically for this podcast, Frankie, because we have 60 episodes now, and God knows we talk a lot on these. So we have 60 hours plus of you and I talking. We've probably shared 2 hours of it.
We have a lot more than 60 hours, so we can't stay within 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But for me,
I hear you loud and clear.
He was saying, you guys are leaving so much meat on. He's like, you guys are taking a little bite of steak and throwing the rest away. He's like, you're not repurposing, you're not using what you have, you're not being creative about getting it in front of people. So I took that away of like, dear God, how many clips do we have? If we've even created the clips, Frank, we haven't even shared 80% of the little marketing clips that I've created. So who's pushing those out there? Where are we putting them? So you even take TikTok. How many of those little clips would do well on TikTok? We don't know. We don't know how those would go. So that, to me, I took a lot away from that of like, quit creating new content if you're not even sharing the old stuff, if you want to grow.
So look what I was put in the chat for you. So this is where I'm at. This was a pretty epic thing. It was something that kind of had a happy accident. Timing worked out better now than it did before. You ended up having a really cool experience because you prioritized two things. You prioritized an experience and also investing in yourselves. And what I've learned with these things is you don't often know where they're going to go. The legs on this can be incredible. In 2009, GaryVee said things to me that I didn't know were going to help me that are helping me. I went to a Tony Robbins event in 2004, and I'm actually structuring something with the business owner now where I'm going to charge him a huge fee, 6 figures, plus points on their business. Tony Robbins talked about that, how he used to coach people. No one would have paid me that in 04, but now they are. So you never know where these things are going to go. Let's wrap this one up, Ian. Is there anything that I think we did a bunch. Is there anything here you want to kind of leave as a takeaway? I think in general, a lot of people pass on things like this that cost what feels like a lot of money. It's like Frank's $140 shirt. I think too many people pass on investing in themselves, and they don't think about it as an investment because they can't see an immediate return on investment. I totally agree with something you just said in that I think our return is going to be multi-years. I think there are going to be some big returns we get out of it, lots of little ones. I think a lot of things we already knew were confirmed by being there. And I think you have to take those swings. If you want something big, you have to get those outside opinions, those outside experiences. If we want this to be a unicorn, a big billion-dollar company, we're not going to do it with just our thoughts. Like you have to get other takes, other inputs. And there's so many different ways that I got out of it. The floor is so much bigger than I had a fun trip to California and went to a Dodgers game and met GaryVee. That was great. That was fun to meet him. I probably wasn't as fanboy as everyone else in meeting him. And that, some of them were like totally starstruck, but it was like, okay, he's another guy and he's really good at a certain thing. I was impressed with the way he handled the group. I was impressed with the depth of knowledge he could get into in very specific businesses. And I definitely took a lot of different things away that we're going to use in Keep, in this podcast, for 5on4 group, every business I'm in, our real estate fund, all of this stuff I'm sharing with you. I'm sure I'm going to use bits and pieces of it over time that I'm going to get a return. So in wrap, I'm going to say this. Ian got some free reach and he got some virtual reach. And the reason he got both is he got himself in the room. And had he not been in the room, he still would have had a great life, but this is going to give him something that has legs for a while.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So because our YouTube channel sucks, don't forget to sign up and comment below, 5 stars, and subscribe here on your favorite platform. And for Ian and me, I think that's a wrap.
subscribe to us. And one thing I know that has reach is that chicken necked V-neck that you've got from 10 years ago. That's got great reach, great viral reach.
No doubt.
See you,
I'm
bro.
going to go have a uniform change, pal.
See you, man.
See ya.